evening. My name, as I said before, is Samuel Muhindi, file number 4584, class of 1977. I would like to address a topic titled Navigating the Business World, or transitioning from corporate to business. So, navigating the business world. The word navigating means moving with intention, even when the path is not clear. The path in the business world is rarely clear, but we must move with intention. The business world is characterized by many changes, and we have been taken through some of them by Brother Eden. There is digitization, globalization, virtualization, operating outside brick and mortar. There are concepts of 24/7 with virtualization. And the big question is, will the AI or the Industrial Revolution era build or destroy more jobs? I think that's what is more relevant for us today. And I would like to suggest that it will build more jobs for those who will move with intention, for those who will remain focused. What is business? Business is the meaning of the word business from, say, Mr. Kiyosaki is different from the ordinary meaning. Business has been defined as having a system that generates money with or without you. A system that generates money with or without you. If a business has to generate income only when you are working, then that is not deemed to be a business. It is deemed to be self-employment. So you can create a job or create a system that will generate income for you. And what is the whole aim of creating a business? The aim in life is to succeed. And to succeed means that you have passive income, that you are able to generate income that is not dependent on you. But after you have attained financial freedom through creation of business, you must then endeavor to move from success to significance. And that is in line or in keeping with Starehe's philosophy or mission, making an impact. You start by being successful, then you become significant by making an impact on the society. So creation of business is very important. But the question is, how many people, in terms of percentage, are able to attain financial freedom? Where financial freedom means your income is greater than your liabilities or your expenses. Most of us start by creating liabilities. As soon as we get jobs, the next thing we do is to move out from where we are and start paying rent. Then we get into bigger houses, get into weddings, get into having children, and get into paying fees, at times in high-cost schools. Good as they may be, the timing at times is wrong. Because the wealthy prefer to first create systems that make money, so that the systems can finance those liabilities. So, success is therefore not an accident. Success is actually a subject that should be studied like any other subject. But success is studied by way of mentorship, by way of career talks, such as the talks we used to get from Dr. Griffin, besides academics. Success is learned through case studies. Many business schools nowadays even teach through case studies. Success is also learned through benchmarking. You look at those people who are slightly ahead of you and benchmark with them. I also like saying that success is a combination look, whereby one should master some codes in order for the lock to open. It is not only academics, and already in the introductory remarks we have gotten that kind of idea. There are several codes. And some of the codes, like we were taught at Starehe, like for me I can remember a number of them, but one of them that stuck out for me was conscientiousness. That if you're given a cup of coffee to wash it as though it has never been washed before. I was conscientious from the moment I started working. As a result, I used to get 2 increments in a year. One in May, another one in December. Maybe to avoid union issues. But as I looked at my salary increments, I realized that was not what I was meant to be. As a Starehe boy, I had been indoctrinated to aim high. And I had dreams. And today we have been reminded by our chairman, if you have a dream, don't let it go. For dreams are the tiny seeds from which tomorrows grow. I had a dream. So I decided to look around those who had succeeded. And I realized there are some old boys who had taken certain paths, and I benchmarked with them. I realized that the secret of success was to know everything about something, and then something about everything. To know everything about something means to become a specialist. I aspire to become a specialist, at least in one thing. Specialization. And as I became a specialist in a particular field and became an authority, inspired by the likes of Orengo and Mwite, I used to say there are very many lawyers, but very few Mwites. And I wanted that to be said also of me in a particular field. So that is an opportunity we all have. So as soon as I became a specialist, opportunities started opening for me. Instead of getting the normal increments that were good, attractive, but not good enough for me, now my salary had to be compounded by a factor. And that was not enough. Doors started opening while I was still working. Because I got an opportunity, I started getting opportunities now to train others, to become a lecturer. And also, I started getting a clientele base while I'm still working. So I was monetizing my specialization. Now, that, I call that intrapreneurship. There is entrepreneurship and intrapreneurship, whereby while you are still working, without being in conflict with your employer, you start doing something that can generate income. And I'll tell you why that story I've given is relevant. It's relevant because businesses require capital. Now let me come to directly on the issue of starting businesses. To start a business, there are many ways of starting business. And you start business through many ways. But we know it starts mainly with an idea. But ideas are normally overrated. But because those ideas must be subjected to a budget. Someone can come up with any idea, but that idea must be subjected to a budget. Because the budget is the reality check. The two main components of a budget are income and expenditure. And normally, you must spend first before you can generate an income. So you start with an idea, but subject it to a budget. And that's now where, that's what takes you to the next level. How will you raise capital? Because you need an income first to generate income. You need, to spend first in order to generate an income. There are various ways of raising capital, and I've already given you one of them, whereby while you are still working, you start having other streams of income through your specialization, and that generates capital. So you start off as an intrapreneur to then become an entrepreneur. That's one way. And that's probably the easiest, because your business or your side hustle will have grown so that you'll just move into it swiftly. But the other way of raising capital is through savings. And one case example we have is that of Dell. Dell started in his business in a dormitory. But he had a specialization of making computers. So he used to make computers and sell to his fellow students. Then save the money. But he was smart. He used to demand for payment first. Payment had to be made for the next order. He knew the concepts of just in time, that inventory at times can kill business. Then the other way of raising capital is through network. One person who used network to raise capital was Bill Gates. It so happens that Bill Gates' mom was a board member of IBM. And IBM had a challenge. And the challenge was that they needed an operating system. The mother approached or booked an appointment for Bill Gates. And Bill Gates was able to sell a system which he didn't have. He went to those, bought a system. So he had guts, but network. And as I said, network for some of us, like in my case, could only arise through my employment. So networks are valuable. The other case, another way of raising capital is, I've said side hustle. I've talked about, what else have I said? Yeah? Savings and network. Then the other one is thinking out of the box. And in that, I would think of Elon Musk. For Elon Musk to raise capital for mass production, what did he do? He targeted premium clients with a vehicle that was worth $100,000. And he was able to get commitment and sell. I think he sold over 100 vehicles in a day. And that's how he was able to raise capital. So there are many ingenious ways of raising capital, and I've given you a few examples. Now, moving from how to raise capital, let me talk about businesses. If you want to succeed in business, you must love numbers and analysis. I'm quoting Jack Welch. You must love numbers and analysis. The kind of numbers you should love are not necessarily complicated mathematics. So all of us, as long as we have love for numbers, and I'll give you a few examples, we can do business. But we cannot do business if we don't love numbers and analysis. Why must we love numbers and analysis? Because quite a number of startups fail, and they fail within the first 3 years. And why do businesses fail? Businesses, particularly startups, fail for very many reasons. One of the reasons why they fail is because of lack of adequate capital. And I'm estimating the amount of money that one needs to start up a business. The other reason is lack of adequate skill set. And that's why I talked about specialization. A business will require the same skill sets. A small business will require the same skill set that a large organization requires. Which then means that the entrepreneur will be required not only to be an entrepreneur thinking about the vision, but also to be a manager, and also to be a technician. So it is very difficult for one person to understand finance, marketing, accounting, HR, etc. But that's what a small startup requires. And that's why maybe I should have even added one other aspect. After you become a specialist, the next thing is to transit. You need to transit from being a technician to a manager and then a leader. And you do that not only by attending business classes, but also by reading many self-help books. That's how you transit. And those are the same skills that will help you in running your business. Because now, if you get employed, you will be able to interact with colleagues from other disciplines. Those are the skills that will help you in now running your own business. So startups fail, and they fail because of lack of adequate capital. They also fail because of financial management, issues to do with financial mismanagement. What we need to know, even as a business grows, a business that is growing might require additional capital. More so if one is selling on credit. So selling on credit or having a large book of debtors is also what kills business. So there are very many factors that lead to collapse of businesses. And maybe to summarize, I would say it is important to understand, number one, the difference between revenue and profit. And then differentiate profit from cash. In case you are selling on cash basis. Now, let me also give you 2 or 3 other reasons why businesses fail. I have in mind several cases. There was the case of Kodak. Why did Kodak fail? Kodak failed because they ended up loving the product more than the problem they were solving. Because businesses are started for the purpose of solving problems. Kodak was solving the problem of memory, that one wants to take a photo for memory sake. But they had a strong research and development department and ended up inventing or innovating film. But although they invented film, they did not pursue that. They instead decided to protect film. And the rest is history. They died. The other company, or the other example I'd like to give you, as I'm coming to a conclusion, is Netscape. Those who will remember the case of Netscape, or you may not remember due to your age, they were the leading browsing company. They had an internet browser. And they were controlling 90% of the market. Microsoft felt threatened and decided to start Internet Explorer. And Microsoft made it a condition that Windows had to run with Internet Explorer. Microsoft was condemned for having broken the antitrust rules or antitrust laws in the US, and they were required to pay a heavy fine. But the result of it is that Netscape ended up collapsing from controlling the business 90% to dying. The other example is Microsoft. Google also became interested in developing internet browser. But they decided to adopt a different approach. They introduced Chrome, but they introduced Chrome within an ecosystem. The ecosystem was the Android operating system. They ended up edging out Microsoft. But Microsoft, unlike Netscape, did not die. Because Microsoft had diversified their products. Then we have another example in Nokia. Nokia took pride in being the best phone manufacturing company. And they had large distribution networks. But what happened was that they didn't bother with developing the ecosystem. So Google changed the game. And Google, instead of focusing on who has the best phone, redefined the environment to be who has the best operating system. And therefore, Nokia, with all their strong engineering and distribution network, collapsed. Why did they collapse? It's because they didn't have an ecosystem. What am I trying to say? Even solid businesses can collapse, or they are exposed to the vagaries of the market conditions. And the way to survive or to succeed in business is by developing an ecosystem. Don't rely on only one product. And also, when you are controlling a market, make sure you create an ecosystem with many products. So that like Google now, Google gives you free access to Android. But then they offer many other services, including YouTube. They do a lot of advertisement. They have cloud. Just like Microsoft also has cloud. So you can say Google now has become very strong because of controlling the ecosystem. Apple also controls the ecosystem for phones. So they are secure. So businesses can fail because of either internal challenges, like the ones I've alluded to, financial mismanagement, not having adequate capital. But they can also fail because of not having, not controlling the ecosystem or relying on one product. But lest I might discourage you, is to tell you, yes, specialize and become good at one product. Because you can't be everything to everyone. But as you gain dominance, don't sleep easy. Now then, start diversifying, and if possible, endeavor to control the ecosystem. Yeah, thank you. That's all.